Can we like as best as you can describe a mock scrape? Like how like when you get up to one, how do you actually make it? Because I feel like this is something that I probably don't do a good enough job is my detailed how detailed I am with my actually making a mock scrape.
Yeah. So for me, if I'm going to build a mock, it's going to mimic a community scrape.
Okay.
That's because every deer for 100 miles of me or 200 miles of me in every direction, the community scrapes are the scrapes that the entire local deer herd know where it's at. They've been raised on it and they'll go to it. And there's two types of community scrapes. There's community scrapes that pretty much all the deer within a couple miles, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles, even in the mountain country, will know, because they do travel a lot, that they feel safe hitting at night. And that'll be based on human pressure, maybe even predator advantage, wind disadvantage to them, but they'll still check them at night because there's a lot of deer that check them at night. Those type of community scrapes do not interest me. There's also hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testosterone, rut frenzy based, scratched out scrapes that nothing ever materializes at those from young bucks. And then there's the gold mine type scrapes that are they're positioned and located. And this has been true to everywhere I've ever hunted in the country, every state. And I look for these no matter where I hunt, and they exist. These scrapes that I mimic, that I make a mock out of, they look just like what I find in a true daylight visited area that's for what you have to figure out the reasons why once you find one.
Yeah.
That the pressure for whatever reason at that exact location, and it's based on multiple factors of the biology of a deer, where they like to eat, where they like to bed, where they get away from all pressures. These are usually in pretty heavy security cover or right off the edges of huge giant blocks of security. And I will mimic those types of scrapes. And I also really work hard to find those types of locations. Because as soon as you can lay down a big mock scrape that looks like your local deer herd's community scrapes, and if you put it in a location that the entire local deer herd, including the old bucks, feel safe getting to and exiting, then you're in the game, and you're in the game big time. So for every listener out there, this isn't just for Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Canada, where I spend most of my time. This is everywhere I've ever been. And I've seen it in Oklahoma, Ohio, North Dakota, doesn't matter where I go. If you can place or find some of these, go find them, stop and really take some time to examine them, look at the tree species that the deer prefer, study the ground and how big these community scrapes are to your local deer. Then I take that entire picture of what I find, and obviously I've been doing this for decades. I go replicate that somewhere else in a spot where there needs to be one, in my opinion, and then I add multiple deer profiles to it, all synthetics, multiple deer, because as soon as the whitetails in that mock spot walk in and inspect it or get a smell of it and go to it, because they go right to them when they smell them. I get in, build them, get out. Attention to detail is so crucial. We can go into that next.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically what they've seen their entire life and that they know, especially the old does and the old bucks. And what happens with my oldest bucks, and I've got years of video proof of this, I'll put a mock community scrape real close to where I find his sheds or find him first. And basically what I'm doing, Josh, is I'm putting it right in his lap. And he has no choice but either to address it, or if I screw it up and really foul it up, which I don't, I'm very careful, I mean, I might have in the past, but I don't anymore. I'm very careful. He either addresses it or, you know, the truth is he can't not address it. And it's cool watching him come in. My favorite videos in my entire life are still to this day when the big mature bucks that are 5 years and older inspect my community scrape that I built. So I built a mock community for him, and I'll get 2 or 3 bucks sometimes because of the location I'm at. It's a great area for old bucks to die of old age. Those bucks walk in and they spend more time than any deer in the entire herd inspecting it. They spend more time initially inspecting it. A lot of times they'll hang around it for 10 to 15, 20 minutes. And what's going on, if you really watch his behavior and his body language, is he's processing all of this information. And what I see in their body language and what I get in return frequency is he wants to know how in the hell he missed this his whole life in his territory. And I see it all the time, Josh, and it works. Works every state I've ever hunted in. Worked for me in Ohio. I just ran out of time. I let a 5-year-old buck. I didn't even hunt him because he wasn't what I was looking for, but he was 5 years old. And I got to see that happen in 8 days. So I'm mimicking the greatest gold mine type scrapes, which are community, long-standing, traditional scrapes. I'm mimicking everything about them and moving them to a deer or a specific area that I think holds a big deer, if you will.
Okay. So like a mock scrape here may look a little different than what it looks like out in Idaho. You know, a guy just needs to go out and figure out what he needs to mimic.
You mean a real scrape? A real
Yes,
scrape might
sorry.
look,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So you're talking an existing true scrape. You know, I've been letting the deer teach me more than any. You know what you do in 10 days of scouting, 12, 15 hours a day, pays bigger dividends than reading books for 5 years. And I mean that. So I'm going out there, Josh, and I'm really, and this is, you know, you're probably what, 30s at the oldest?
Yeah, I'm 33.
Yeah. When I was your age, Josh, that's when I was really knocking down when I was 33, I killed the number 2 buck in the state of Idaho. So I was getting my game. I was getting it figured out with a bow. And what it got me to that point, Josh, is just the amount of time I spent allowing the deer to teach me everything I could learn by scouting and really paying attention to the scrapes they used year round versus the ones that dried up and weren't worth a shit. Mm-hmm. So that it really started to have to differentiate those, because if you just hunt scrapes and you just throw a scrape out, most of the time you're wasting your time. You've really got to dial into those hubs, those community social hubs that all the deer feel safe at. And those nighttime ones are great for pictures, but if you're not getting great daylight at those nighttime community scrapes, you got to move. So you take the mocking of a scrape, and you implement that where the location is better for daylight movement of all your deer, including your oldest bucks.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And you kind of hit a nerve with me there, because you said you're wasting your time. And I tried a bunch of different ways of producing the mock scrapes, and some of them were productive, and some of them I just was like, what the heck, it was probably just me being stupid, making mistakes. But
Josh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if I came out with you for 10 days, and you said you're in Indiana.
Yep. Southern Indiana. Yep.
If I could have 10 days in Indiana to hike that big Forest Service country. It sounds like Forest Service, National Forest Service ground.
Yeah, it's National Forest. Yep.
I would literally, my approach would be, I would go hike it, and I would grid great looking areas that had good sign, but I would be looking for one key factor. I would find the community scrapes that the deer have already been using in your areas for decades. And the proof for decades is at the scrape. You have to know what you're looking for to see that. You need to see that years and years and years of use at those licking branches on the ground. You really gotta zone in on what you're looking for. I would obviously be able to look at topos and look at all your maps and pick some areas I think they'd be good in. But as soon as I found some that showed decades of use, I would really pay close attention to the species of licking branch that those deer are using that lasts for years and years. And then I would really inspect that soil and how they're pawing it up and using it. And then I would immediately inspect everything within a mile of every direction and break down all the trails, all the bedding, the best food sources, everything to that scrape. And then, of course, if I lived there like you do, I'd throw a camera on that scrape and I'd just let the deer tell me everything they need to know, that I need to know. And then if that, let's say we found one, if it showed me daylight movement right now, bucks that are just starting to grow their antlers right now, I would leave a camera on that year round and I would learn from those deer. And then even during the pressured hunting seasons, I would learn how they reacted at that spot, because that's what I do out here. And I would see if it was a true daylight quality frequency place or not. And if it's a true daylight quality frequency scrape that's a community hub, then I would probably hunt it. But if not, then I would take that same exact look, picture, species, and go build it in a better location if there was a deer I wanted to hunt in that 1 mile circle around it. And I would throw that same look, multiple deer profiles. I would build the licking branches exactly like what the deer had showed me there. I'd build the scrape probably relatively the same size and see what happened. And I do that out here year after year after year, everywhere I go.